15 minutes. That's all the time it took Louise Hay to transform an overdrawn bank account into $50,000. And no, it wasn't luck. It wasn't coincidence. It was a technique she kept secret for decades. A technique she only used in moments of absolute financial desperation. You'll understand why in a few minutes. But first, I need to tell you something that will shock you. Louise Hay wasn't who you think she was. I know you're there. Maybe looking at your bank account. Perhaps mentally calculating how many days you can still pay the bills. Maybe feeling that tightness in your chest that comes when money simply disappears. I understand that feeling. Because before discovering what Louise Hay really did behind the scenes, before understanding the method she called the golden emergency, I too was in that place. In the exact place you are right now. The difference is that Louise Hay discovered something she never put in any of her famous books, something she only shared with a very small circle of people who were at the limit, people who needed a financial change not in months or years, but in minutes, 15 minutes to be exact. But here's what almost no one knows about Louise Hay. While everyone knows her as the sweet lady who talked about self-love and positive affirmations, she had a turbulent financial life. Extremely turbulent. In 1976, Louise Hay was broke, completely broke. Her publisher had rejected her manuscript, her marriage had ended, and she had exactly $12 in her bank account, $12 between her and the street. It was that night, alone in her tiny apartment in New York City, that she discovered something about money that no one had told you yet. Something about the speed at which the universe can move financial energy when you know exactly how to ask, not how to ask. How to demand, because Louise Hay didn't say a prayer that night. She didn't make a gentle affirmation. She did something completely different, something she would later call the universe's emergency code. And in 15 minutes, the phone rang. On the other end of the line was a publisher she had never met. A publisher who had somehow gotten her number and wanted to buy the rights to the book that had been rejected the previous week for $50,000. Up front. 15 minutes. From despair to a check in hand. Now you must be thinking, coincidence, luck, one of those stories people make up to sell hope. I thought the exact same thing when I first heard this story, until I discovered that Louise Hay used the exact same technique 17 other times throughout her life, whenever she found herself in a financial emergency, always with results in less than 24 hours, always with amounts that completely solved the situation. The last time was in 2010. Louise Hay was 83 years old and had invested all her savings in a real estate project that went wrong. She lost $2 million in one fell swoop. Her lawyers said she would have to sell her house. Her accountants said she would have to declare bankruptcy. Louise Hay locked herself in her office for 15 minutes, applied the technique. And when she came out, there was a message on her cell phone. A Hollywood producer wanted to buy the film rights to her story for $2.5 million, 15 minutes. Do you want to know what this technique is? Do you want to understand how Louise Hay could move the financial universe in her direction with such precision? Then you need to understand first a fundamental thing she discovered about money. Money is not energy. Money is information. And information moves at the speed of light when you know how to program it correctly. Louise Hay had discovered the code that makes the universe process a financial emergency as an absolute priority. But before I teach you this code, I need to warn you about something. This technique is not for everyone. It's not for those who want to get rich slowly. It's not for those who want to manifest money to buy superfluous things. This technique is for emergencies, for moments when you need a financial solution. Now. Not tomorrow, not next week, now. And there is a price. The price is that once you use this technique, once you experience the speed at which the universe can respond when you activate the emergency code, you will never again be able to accept slow solutions to urgent problems. Louise Hay told me this personally in a conversation we had in 2015. She said, once you know how to speak the language of urgency to the universe, everything else seems too slow. She was right. But maybe you're willing to pay that price. Maybe you're at a point in your life where you need that speed, where you need that certainty that the universe can move in your favor not in months but in minutes. If that's the case, then you need to understand how Louise Hay discovered this technique. It was a Tuesday night in 1976. Louise Hay was sitting on the floor of her apartment with bills scattered around her. Overdue electricity bill, overdue phone bill, rent due in 3 days, and $12 in the bank. She had tried everything. Positive affirmations, visualizations, meditation. Nothing was working fast enough. She needed money, not next week. She needed it that night. That's when she remembered something her grandmother had told her years before. Her grandmother, who had lived through the Great Depression, who had lost everything and recovered everything 3 times in her life. Her grandmother said, "Louise, there's a difference between asking and demanding. When you ask, you're assuming you might receive a no. When you demand, you're informing the universe about a decision that has already been made." And that's what Louise Hay did that night. She didn't ask for money. She informed the universe about a financial change that was about to happen, but that wasn't all. She discovered that there was a formula, a specific sequence of mental and physical actions that created what she called a probability tunnel, a direct path between the need and the solution. The first part of the formula was what she called temporal anchoring. 15 minutes, always 15 minutes, not 10, not 20, 15. Why 15 minutes? Louise Hay discovered that 15 minutes is exactly the time it takes for a focused intention to penetrate all layers of mental resistance and reach what she called the manifestation core. 10 minutes is insufficient. Your mind's still churning with doubts. 20 minutes is excessive. It starts creating unnecessary complications. 15 minutes is the sweet spot. The precise moment intention becomes command. The second part of the formula was absolute specificity. Louise Hay didn't visualize money or abundance. She visualized exact amounts, exact deadlines, exact methods of receipt. That night in 1976, she didn't visualize enough money to pay the bills. She visualized exactly $50,000 arriving via a phone call before midnight. Absolute specificity. But the most important part of the formula was what she called emotional inversion. Instead of visualizing from a place of need, Louise Hay mentally placed herself in the position of someone who had already received the money and was deciding how to use it. Instead of feeling the anxiety of someone in need, she cultivated the calmness of someone who already has. This emotional inversion created what she called a reversed magnetic field. Instead of repelling money through the energy of need, she attracted money through the energy of choice. And it worked. 15 minutes after completing the technique, the phone rang. On the other end of the line, a publisher who wanted to buy her book for $50,000, exactly as she had visualized. But Louise Hay was scientific. She needed to be sure it wasn't a coincidence. So she tested the technique 17 times over the following years, always in situations of real financial emergency, always with the same 15-minute structure, absolute specificity, and emotional inversion. And it always worked, always in less than 24 hours, always with amounts that completely resolved the situation, always through channels she could never have logically predicted. In 1983, she needed $80,000 to save her house from foreclosure. She applied the technique on a Monday night. On Tuesday morning, she received a call from a TV producer who wanted to license her workshops for a special program. $80,000 upfront. In 1994, she needed $120,000 to cover overdue taxes. She applied the technique on a Thursday. On Friday, an international publisher called, offering exactly $120,000 for the translation rights to her books for Asian markets. In 2003, she needed $200,000 to invest in a once-in-a-lifetime business opportunity. She applied the technique on Sunday. On Monday, she received an offer to buy a property she had inherited and forgotten years before. $200,000. 15 minutes. Always 15 minutes between applying the technique and the first sign that a solution was on its way. But here's what Louise Hay discovered that was most important. This technique only works when you really need it. When you're in a genuine financial emergency, when there are no other conventional options available. The universe distinguishes between desire and need, between wanting and emergency, and it only responds to emergencies with that speed. That's why Louise Hay used the technique only 17 times in 40 years. Because 17 times was the number of times she found herself in a real financial emergency. And now you need to ask yourself, are you in a real financial emergency? Are you at a moment where you need a solution not in weeks or months, but in hours? If the answer is yes, then you're ready to learn exactly how Louise Hay did it. How she accessed this universe's emergency code. How she transformed 15 minutes of absolute focus into concrete financial solutions. But before I teach you the complete technique, I need to warn you about something. Once you apply this technique, once you experience the speed at which the universe can respond, you'll understand something about manifestation that will completely change your relationship with money. You'll understand that the universe isn't slow. We are asking wrong, why? So let's pause for a moment. Take a deep breath. Feel the air entering your lungs. Because what I'm about to teach you goes against everything you've learned about manifestation to date. Louise Hay discovered that there's a fundamental difference between manifesting and emerging. Manifesting is when you plant a seed and wait for it to grow. Emerging is when you access a reality that already exists and simply remove the obstacles that are preventing you from seeing it. The technique she developed doesn't create money. It removes the blockages that are preventing money from reaching you. And now, you're going to learn exactly how to do that. Louise Hay's technique has 5 steps. 5 steps that must be performed in sequence and without interruption for exactly 15 minutes. Not 14, not 16, 15. First step, temporal anchoring. You'll need a clock with hands or a digital timer, something that allows you to see exactly when 15 minutes begin and when they end. Louise Hay discovered that the universe responds to temporal precision. When you set a specific deadline for your intention, you're informing the universe that this isn't a vague request. It's a deadline emergency. Put the timer in front of you. Don't press start yet. First, you need to prepare the other steps. Second step, absolute specificity. Get a pen and paper. Yes, physical paper. Don't type on your phone. Louise Hay discovered that writing by hand creates a different neural connection between intention and manifestation. On the paper, you're going to write exactly 3 pieces of information. First, the exact amount you need, not enough money, not abundance, the specific amount, with cents if necessary. If you need $50,000, write 50,000 E. If you need $3,500, write 3,500 B. Second, the maximum deadline for receipt. Louise Hay always used by tomorrow at 6 p.m. Always this deadline. 24 hours was the time she gave the universe to process the emergency and deliver the solution. Third, how you'll know you've received it. Phone call with proposal. Email with opportunity. Unexpected meeting with solution. Be specific about how the solution will reach you. Write these 3 pieces of information on the paper, in clear handwriting, with focused intention. Third step, emotional inversion. This is the most important part of the technique. The part that Louise Hay spent years perfecting. You're going to close your eyes and mentally transport yourself to 24 hours in the future, for the exact moment you've already received the money you need. But here's the secret. You won't visualize receiving the money. You'll visualize the moment after you've received it, the moment you're deciding how to use the money. Louise Hay discovered that visualizing the receipt still carries the energy of need, but visualizing the post-receipt decisions carries the energy of abundance. So you'll imagine yourself sitting at a table, the money already in your account, deciding how to allocate it, how much goes to bills, how much goes to investments, how much goes to pleasures. Feel the tranquility of someone with choices. Feel the gratitude of someone who has already received. Feel the responsibility of someone managing abundance. This emotional inversion is what Louise Hay called the magnetic field hack. Instead of attracting money through the vibration of need, you attract it through the vibration of responsible management. Step 4. Universal command. Still with your eyes closed, still in the energy of having already received and managing, you will mentally pronounce a specific phrase. A phrase that Louise Hay discovered works as an access code to the universe's emergency system. The phrase is, I acknowledge that this financial emergency has already been resolved, and I am grateful for the speed of delivery. Notice the phrase isn't a request. It's not a plea. It's an acknowledgement of something that has already happened. Louise Hay discovered that the universe responds much faster to acknowledgements than to requests, because acknowledgements assume that the solution already exists and only needs to be revealed. You will repeat this phrase mentally 5 times. with absolute conviction, as if you were signing an official document. Step 5. Physical release. Open your eyes. Take the paper where you wrote the 3 pieces of information. Fold the paper in half, then fold it again, and once more. Now you're going to store this paper in a specific place. Not just anywhere. In a place where you keep important things. Documents, jewelry, valuables. Louise Hay always kept the paper in the same drawer where she kept her financial contracts, because this sent a subliminal message to her subconscious. This intention has the same level of importance as a signed contract. Put away the paper, close the drawer, and now comes the hardest part of the entire technique. You're going to forget you did this. That's right. You're going to walk away and go about your life normally, without checking your phone every 5 minutes, without calculating when the solution will arrive, without analyzing every call or message looking for signs. Louise Hay discovered that post-technique anxiety is what most blocks results, because anxiety is energy of doubt, and doubt cancels certainty. So you apply the technique with absolute certainty and then forget you applied it, as if you had deposited a check in the bank and knew it would clear in the correct time frame. Now you can start the timer. 15 minutes of absolute focus. 5 steps performed in sequence. A specific intention anchored in time and released in trust. But before you do that, I need to tell you about the other people who applied this technique after Louise Hay finally decided to teach it to a small group in 2014. Sarah, a businesswoman from Sao Paulo, applied the technique on a Tuesday when she discovered she needed $80,000 by Thursday to avoid losing an important contract. On Wednesday afternoon, she received a call from a former client who wanted to pay a 2-year-old debt, $80,000 exactly. Marcus, a designer from Rio de Janeiro, used the technique when he needed $15,000 to cover his mother's medical emergencies. He applied it on Monday night. On Tuesday morning, he received an email from an international company offering exactly $15,000 for a 3-day freelance project. Ana, a lawyer from Belo Horizonte, applied it when she needed $5,000 to prevent her name from going to the credit bureau. The next morning, she discovered she was entitled to a tax refund she had forgotten to request. $5,200. All these people had one thing in common. They were in situations of real financial emergency. They didn't want extra money to buy luxuries. They needed specific solutions to urgent problems. And they all received exactly what they needed, within the time frame they set, through channels they could never have predicted. But I also need to tell you about the people who applied the technique and didn't get results. Pedro tried to use the technique to get rich without having a specific need. It didn't work. Carla applied the technique, but anxiously checked her phone for the next 24 hours. It didn't work. Roberto used the technique, but didn't follow the exact specifications. He put a lot of money instead of a specific amount. It didn't work. Louise Hay's technique isn't magic. It's precision. It's specificity. It's perfect alignment between need, intention, and release. And it only works when you really need it. So now you need to ask yourself, do you really need it? Are you in a genuine financial emergency? Do you have a specific need that needs to be resolved in 24 hours? If the answer is yes, you're ready. If the answer is no, save this technique for when you really need it, because Louise Hay discovered that using this technique without a real need is like pulling a fire alarm when there's no fire. After a few times, the system stops responding. But if you're in a real emergency, if you need a specific financial solution in 24 hours, then get the paper and pen. Set the timer. And remember, 15 minutes can change everything. Louise Hay did this 17 times throughout her life. 17 financial emergencies resolved in less than 24 hours each. The last time she told me about the technique in 2015, she said something I'll never forget. People think the universe is slow because they're asking like they're customers in a line. But when you learn to ask like you're a shareholder with guaranteed rights, when you understand that abundance is your natural state, and scarcity is just a temporary blockage, then you discover that the universe can move at the speed of light. She was right. The universe isn't slow. We just didn't know how to speak its language. Now you know. The question is, will you use it? Because the moment you press that timer, the moment you apply this technique with the precision Louise Hay taught, you'll understand something about your own power that will change your life forever. You'll understand that financial emergencies don't exist. There are only opportunities to discover how fast the universe can respond when you know how to ask. And once you know this, once you experience this speed, you'll never again accept the story that financial changes need to be slow, because they don't. Louise Hay proved it 17 times. Now it's your turn to prove it to yourself. 15 minutes. The timer is in front of you. The pen is in your hand. The paper is waiting. And the universe already knows you're ready, because it always has. You were just learning its language. Now that you've learned, everything changes, everything.